My husband wasn't home. But what my son did next left me speechless. Infidelity stories. Never could I have imagined that my life would take such unexpected turns. A woman in her mid-40s finds herself alone within the elegant walls of a beautiful house, surrounded by an all-consuming feeling of invisibility. My husband was always missing. His business trips stretched from days into weeks. Upon his return, his presence appeared to bear the burden of formality instead of the embrace of a reunion. Our dialogue barely transcended the boundaries of superficial banter. Years had passed since we last experienced even a hint of intimacy. I upheld a veneer of normalcy, crafted meals with care, organized the space, and welcomed the neighbors with a warm smile. Yet inside, I was fading away. In the gentle warmth of early spring, my husband disclosed that he would be leaving again, this time for almost a month. I nodded, pretending to understand. In keeping with tradition, I chose to hold my tongue. I refrained from participating in that action. I was under the impression that I had reconciled with this reality, or at the very least, I thought I had. Just a week following his departure, my stepson Aiden returned from college for the eagerly awaited spring break. At 22, he stood with an air of confidence, embodying politeness, and had always upheld a respectful distance. From his middle school days, I had cared for him, and as a result, our relationship had always maintained a sense of understated formality. Yet now he stood as a man, and a subtle transformation occurred in the way his gaze intertwined with mine. In the beginning, it bore no hint of wrongdoing, yet it stood apart from all else. I noted that his gaze lingered a moment longer than usual. His compliments, once delivered with a lightness that felt almost fleeting, now resonated with a profound sense of intimacy. "You look beautiful today," he remarked one morning in the kitchen. His voice carried a comforting warmth. I dismissed it with a light laugh, though my heart raced with excitement. Our time together began to grow significantly, largely by chance. He would lend a hand with the groceries, suggest cooking dinner together, and provide companionship during those late-night television marathons. I tried to ignore the growing tension, but I was far from unaware. Every time his hand brushed against mine, every moment he stayed just a heartbeat too close. I felt it profoundly. As the day waned, we settled onto the porch, entranced by the stunning colors of the sunset. He conveyed his appreciation for my ability to maintain the family's unity, recognizing the resilience I demonstrated for his father. Words eluded me, leaving me in a state of silence. Years had passed since I last encountered such commendation. His voice possessed a quality, gentle yet earnest, that broke through the defenses I had built around my heart. I looked at him and saw someone who truly saw me, more than a title, more than a label. A man met my eyes, a man who acknowledged my presence. That night, sleep danced just out of reach. I often find myself returning to our conversations, reflecting on them repeatedly. His gaze held me captive, and I stood there, trying to persuade myself that it was merely innocent. Yet, beneath the veneer, I was sharply conscious of the duplicity I concealed. This sensation went beyond simple loneliness. I had crossed an emotional threshold that I could no longer overlook. When I came across him again the next morning, the sight of his smile ignited a feeling of discomfort deep within me. A deep longing stirred within me for that attention, that heady thrill of being wanted, even if it was misplaced. After a prolonged interval, I discovered that I was genuinely awake for the very first time. Still, an unsettling fear clung to my being. The awareness of my proximity to a pivotal moment loomed large, yet I had yet to take any action. Without prompt intervention, I dreaded the thought of being unable to retreat from the looming tempest. On a Thursday evening, the events began to unravel. The stillness of the house wrapped around all, the air thickening with an unusual weight. As I finished my dinner, the rain unleashed its fury, and suddenly the lights went out. In the quietude of a space stripped of distractions, the flickering glow of candles cast a warm light, transforming the ambience entirely. Aiden stepped into the living room, 2 glasses of wine gracefully held in his hands. He presented it with a soft smile, as though he could perceive a longing. After a brief moment of reflection, I extended my hand toward the glass. We remained in stillness, the only sound being the soft rhythm of the rain tapping against the windows. The wine softened my barriers. Our conversation drifted through the hallways of recollections, intertwining within the fabric of feelings. He conveyed his recent feelings of being unmoored, articulating a deep appreciation for the solace of home and the security he discovered in my company. The truth enveloped me in a comforting embrace. Then he made a statement that rendered me completely motionless. "It appears you might not entirely recognize the extraordinary nature of your being, do you?" I looked at him, utterly perplexed. Still, he maintained my gaze without faltering. "You deserve someone who genuinely sees your true self," he continued, "a person who awakens the energy that lies within you." My heart pounded with fervor. An impulse surged within me to dismiss it, to express that this was wholly inappropriate. Nevertheless, I held back. His words seeped into the very fabric of my thoughts. A deep longing for affection stirred within me, an insatiable desire for validation. At that moment, the identity of the one who gave faded into insignificance. I shared with him that there were times when I felt I was fading away within these walls, as if my existence had become invisible to those around me. He reached out, his hand enveloping mine with a gentle touch, and I felt an unexpected reluctance to pull away. It was a sensation that seemed to arise from deep within, wrapped in a profound stillness, as though we had arrived at this moment not by our own choice, but by the unyielding force of destiny. There was a gentle closeness, an emotional warmth I hadn't felt in years, complicated, unexpected, but undeniably human. At long last, I sensed the warmth of recognition upon me. His gaze went beyond simple observation, resting on me with a fervor that hinted at profound thoughts and unvoiced sentiments. They enveloped me, filling the emptiness my husband had long ago abandoned. He crept closer. I should have stepped in. I did not. There was a moment when he stood too close, and I should have stepped away. I didn't. Not because I wanted something to happen, but because, for the first time in years, someone saw me. And that scared me more than anything. It unfolded with a sense of calm, devoid of chaos or haste. It was deep, overflowing with the emotions we had kept hidden for so long. As it came to an end, we remained in quietude, each of us profoundly conscious that we had crossed a threshold that could never be undone. I stood from my chair, announced my decision to retire for the evening, and exited, leaving him enveloped in quietude. Yet sleep remained just out of reach. My heart raced with intensity. My thoughts spun in a tumultuous ballet. A sharp awareness of the transgression lingered in the space between us. It surpassed the simple gesture of a kiss. It was a betrayal, not just by my husband, but by everything I thought I stood for. And yet, a shard of my essence lingered, unscathed by remorse. A part of my essence awakened, acknowledged, and gently touched in a way I had long since lost to memory. Language eluded me. I felt no inclination to proceed with that. Still, I felt a profound awareness that everything had transformed beyond return. A profound change awakened inside me, an essence I could never reclaim. The next morning, I avoided any chance of meeting anyone's gaze. I moved through the kitchen with an air of tranquility, as though everything was perfectly in order. Nevertheless, an unmistakable change hung in the atmosphere. Aidan sauntered into the room, exuding an effortless coolness, but I could feel a subtle change in his presence, calm and self-assured, as if he had crossed a threshold and held no regrets for doing so. He offered his help with the breakfast preparations. I tilted my head, my eyes wandering to a distant point. The unvoiced strain that hung in the air between us was tangible, an undeniable presence that demanded attention. We decided to keep our lips sealed regarding the kiss. Neither of us spoke of it, yet it hung in the air, a secret too palpable to ignore. I continually reminded myself that it was just a momentary lapse, a delicate error in judgment. As his hand brushed against mine again, I held my ground, feeling the warmth of his presence as he leaned in just behind me to reach for a plate. A reflexive surge swept through my being. Within me, shame and excitement collided with the force of thunderous waves. Later that day, I caught him watching me, not in a casual manner, but with an intent gaze that suggested deeper interest. His gaze pierced through me, analyzing my features, my gestures, every nuance as though it carried weight. Years had passed since I felt such an enthralling attention, not from my husband nor from anyone else. It was an error. Though I recognized the truth, I could not help but be drawn to the seductive promise of wanting more. Aiden discovered that he was spending increasingly more time enveloped in the warmth of his home, rather than in the lively company of his friends. He wove together a tapestry of reasons to stay near, beckoning me to cozy movie nights, sharing errands, and enjoying leisurely strolls. Our conversations deepened significantly. He asked about my formative years, my dreams, and the sacrifices I had endured over time. I began to grasp the depth of my own concealment, hidden away in the shadows of a marriage that provided no mutuality. I took the initiative to set clear boundaries. I conveyed to him that this could not continue, that it was dangerous and reckless. He took in the words, responded with a nod of understanding, and even extended an apology. In that fleeting instant, he found me alone, and with a soft murmur, he revealed that I lingered in his mind unceasingly. He asserted that I deserved far more than to be forsaken by a man who stayed unaware of my sorrow as I slipped into slumber. Every word cut through the essence of my existence, stitching together the worn seams of my spirit. One evening, he tenderly brushed my cheek and murmured, "You need not continue the charade. It is acceptable to once again welcome your emotions." I opted to remain silent. I deemed it superfluous. The look I directed towards him spoke volumes. The threshold of feeling had been permanently crossed. The occurrences that transpired were completely unforeseen. It was inevitable. I gazed into the mirror, only to encounter a stranger staring back at me. I discovered a woman ensnared in the depths of guilt and longing, navigating the delicate line between loyalty and an unquenchable desire to be wanted. I reminded myself that I was still in control, that I had the power to stop this before it unraveled completely. Nevertheless, the truth was that I had already given in. And yet, I was plagued by the looming consequences, not just of being uncovered, but of the unavoidable moment when he would leave again, when his brief reprieve would end, and I would once again be alone in this house. As he takes his leave, will he accept this version of me, or will I be left to pick up the pieces again? This moment, a product of an irrevocable mistake, signaled the end of Aiden's respite, and the weight of our choices began to press down on us both with increasing intensity. In his quiet moments, it became clear. His eyes conveyed a myriad of emotions, while his lips held back the weight of unuttered thoughts. The heaviness of our silence appeared to grow, bearing down on us with an unvoiced fervor. Overcome by a wave of guilt, he started to gather his possessions, the closeness of the moment gradually fading into the distance. As I meticulously folded each shirt, I felt pieces of my fragile existence disintegrating around me. We had undeniably crossed a threshold, yet what awaits us in the future? We refrain from delving into the uncertainties that await us. He offered no assurances, and I held back from asking. I pursued no delusions. I had lingered in this world for an eternity, wrapped in a false veil of security, beside a husband who barely recognized my existence. Yet this was unlike anything I had expected, an emotional storm I wasn't prepared for. It wasn't right, but it revealed how much I had lost touch with my own sense of self. And now it must draw to a conclusion. As the moment of his departure drew near, he came to me, a glimmer of doubt reflecting in his eyes for the first time since this journey commenced. He did not reach out to take my hand. He looked at me, his expression hinting at thoughts poised to spill forth, yet they lingered in silence. I hold no regrets at all. His voice was gentle, but I find no inclination to disturb your existence either. I nodded, rendered speechless, my throat tight with unspoken words. Uncertainty surrounded me, trapped in the throes of heartbreak and the gentle murmur of relief. As he left the next morning, I stood by the door, much like a bystander watching someone walk away from her life without a single goodbye. No goodbyes, no promises, just a moment cut short. The house resumed its quietude, but an undeniable chill hung in the atmosphere. As the days drifted away, my husband returned, appearing as if he had been untouched by the relentless march of time. He came back bearing mementos, weaving tales from conferences, and sharing stories of business negotiations during the dinner conversations. He stayed unaware of my intentional avoidance of his eyes. He stayed unaware of the void that had settled deep inside me. I had opened parts of myself I thought were long buried, parts untouched even in my marriage, yet the truth remained clear solely to my eyes. At first, I thought guilt would consume me, but instead, I was overwhelmed by a deep sorrow, not just for what I had done, but for the many years I had lingered in the shadows, feeling invisible. The betrayal reached far beyond a simple kiss or a momentary caress. In that fleeting moment of realization, an individual, seemingly insignificant, had seen me with a depth of understanding in just a week that my husband had failed to grasp over the years. Aiden dispatched a succinct note, "Take care of yourself." For hours, I was captivated by it, pondering every nuance until I finally gathered the courage to obliterate it. I realized that we could not continue, and I was also conscious that going back to the past was not a possibility. I had undergone a metamorphosis, and that change was permanent. In the end, I discovered that my marriage, while seemingly complete on the surface, was profoundly empty at its core. I passed my days in the company of a man who held steadfast to the notion that everything was as it should be. As I carried the weight of choices that could not be undone, I realized I was powerless to retrieve what had slipped away. Perhaps the real consequence is not found in the moment of revelation, but rather in the heavy silence that ensues. I found that love without attention turns into a simple routine, whereas attention without commitment devolves into mere allure. Amidst the chaos, I lost a piece of myself that remains eternally out of grasp.